before 8 o'clock. Robert J. Wright, Erin McCarty, 101.7 FM and 710 Keel. This young lady is the executive director of the Louisiana chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. It is Marjorie Esman. Hey, Miss Marjorie, how are you this morning?
I am fine, thank you. How are you this morning?
A lot of hubbub and hullabaloo and arguing going on in Baton Rouge. I hope you can clear this, because there's a lot of different bills, and we'll try to break it down, and you know way more than we do, so you can explain it to us. We're talking about what is called criminal justice reform, but to clarify, would you call it criminal justice reform, or is it sentencing reform?
It's a little bit of both. It's what came out of the package is mostly sentencing reform, but there are other pieces that address the larger picture of the criminal justice system, and so it's a little bit of both.
There's a couple of the three that have passed are not the real serious ones. One gives felons access to food stamps. What are the three that have passed so far, and what are the ones you're most looking forward to watching?
Well, actually, there are all 10 now have passed.
They all have? Okay, good.
Yes, they've all passed. And they break out into a few different categories. The one you just mentioned has to do with ways to make it easier for people to re-enter into society so that they can return to lives of productivity and not revert to criminal patterns. And things like making it possible for people to get food stamps. All that means is that they'll be able to eat without having to, do something illegal in order to get money to pay for food. And there are some other things like that designed to, when somebody's released, when they've done their time, when we've said, okay, you've paid your debt to society, or, you can go back home. We want to make sure that they can succeed when they go back home. Otherwise, they're just going to, revert to the same old bad patterns.
Marjorie, the overall package is to reduce our prison population by 10%.
Correct.
Are we letting violent criminals back out on the street?
Well, first of all, none of this affects people who are generally known as violent criminals. So they're not included in the reforms that have passed, except in one limited way, and that is to make it easier for some folks to get parole hearings. Now, let's make it clear, a parole hearing is not the same thing as being released. All it means is that if after a certain period of time, you've made it very clear to prison officials that you're a changed person and that the likelihood of you doing anything to hurt another person has been reduced to zero, then you can get a hearing to prove to a panel of other people that you're safe. And if they don't agree, then back you go. It doesn't open the doors. It just allows you an opportunity to convince people that it's safe to let you go. So in that sense, that's the only piece that affects what you generally consider to be violent criminals.
Marjorie, I'm sorry, go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
No. The rest of it is designed to, as I say, make it easier for people to succeed when they get out so that they won't go back. And that's part of that 10%, is people who go back because we haven't supported them in a way to make it possible for them to stay on the right side of the law.
I had said a while ago, when all this was starting its march through the legislature, I had said, sort of tongue-in-cheek, what this shows is we don't have too much crime, we've just got too many people in jail. But
that's right. That's exactly what the problem is. On
a serious side, you and the ACLU, you think that's right. Please expound.
Because Louisiana has had sentences that are far greater than any other state for the same offense. And it makes no sense that if, for instance, if somebody steals your cell phone in Texas, that's been a misdemeanor, and here it's a felony that gets you, I forget how many, but several years in prison. That makes no sense, right? Because the cell phone has the same value whatever side of the state line you're on. Things like that. And because we have a system that has made it very difficult, we don't provide adequate training for people behind bars, and so they sit there with nothing to do, and they're not learning skills, and then we let them out, and of course you can't get a job if you don't have any skills that anybody wants to hire, and then if you can't get a job, well, what are you going to do? You got to eat somehow, right? So so what we have had is a system that has made it easy for people to get into prison and not so easy for them to stay out when they get out. And this package of bills is designed to switch that around. And the really wonderful thing about this is that this was supported by everybody across the board. This had law enforcement, the DAs, the sheriffs, the director of the Louisiana Department of Corrections, all behind this. The Louisiana Family Forum, business interests, all behind this.
Marjorie, our DA told us that it's critical, and you just mentioned it makes it easier for them to stay out. It comes with funding for some programs. What does that mean? What should we see and expect?
Well, if it works the way it's supposed to, it will mean funding for things like job training. You mentioned the food stamps for people who were sentenced for drug violations, who are the only people who haven't been able to get food stamps. If you're convicted on a homicide charge and you get out, you get food stamps under the old system, but drug offenders didn't. That doesn't make any sense. Now that will be fixed. Make it easier for people to succeed on parole. Right now, a lot of the people who are incarcerated are people who technical minor violations of parole, like, you call your parole officer a little bit too late, and that's a violation. Now the system will be set up to make it easier for people to be successful when they're trying to be successful, and then sometimes life gets in the way. So it's set up to basically to be supportive of people rather than punitive in an unnecessary way.
Marjorie Esman, Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union in Louisiana, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I think this is going to be great for Louisiana. Thank you.